Buongiorno a tutti. Today we're going to discuss the imperative, another exciting topic in Italian grammar. Did you know that verbs have moods? Yes, they do. Indicative, subjunctive, imperative, they're all moods. Let's take a look at the command mood. This is what it looks like in practice. Mary is eating, Mary eats are just two statements. However, if I say Mary, comma, eat, that is a command. And so that's an imperative. So notice the difference in the punctuation. I put comma after Mary, meaning I'm addressing Mary directly, and then I put the exclamation point after eat, meaning I'm giving a command. In Italian, we could have a statement, Maria mangia. But if I say Maria mangia, that is a command. You know this from all Italian movies. All the Italian mothers always yell at their children, mangia, mangia, right? So that's it. That's an imperative. We could also refer to a person that we would address formally. La signora Martino mangia. I know that this is going to be formal because I'm addressing the person with her title and her last name. So if I want to give her a command, I will say, Signora Martino, mangi. Notice that I've dropped the article before the title when I'm addressing the person in the imperative mood. So we can have an informal imperative, the persons of tu, noi, and voi, and also formal for lei and loro. Let's explain how these are used. I'm going to use tu when I'm addressing just one person, talking to just one person who is a friend of mine or a family member, or if I'm a young person and I'm talking to somebody that I don't know but they're also young, then I will just use tu. I'm not going to be formal. The Italian culture is increasingly informal, so that would be appropriate. Noi I'm going to use if I'm including myself in the mix. So if I'm saying, for example, you and me, guys, so that would be noi. And voi is if I'm talking to a group of people that I would be addressing informally, such as my friends or family or classmates, or I'm a professor talking to my students, for example. Formal is going to be quite frequent in the lei form, meaning I'm addressing one person formally and I'm asking them to do something or I'm giving them some kind of a polite command. Loro, however, is going to be exceedingly rare in Italy today. This would be if I'm addressing a group of people formally, like a group of politicians or some kind of dignitaries or something like that. So it's very unlikely that you will ever need to use that unless you go to Italy and you find a job as a waiter in a very fancy, elegant restaurant. Then the owners of the restaurant might require you to use loro when you're addressing a group of clients. So you decide how often you will need this. Probably not a whole lot. Let's look at the forms. These are the informal forms for tu, noi, and voi, and look at this. Doesn't it look identical to the present tense, except in one case, which is the tu form for airy verbs. So instead of saying, tu compri una maglietta, that would be a statement. If I'm giving you a command, I will say compra una maglietta. So that is the only difference. The rest of the verbs and the rest of the conjugations, they're exactly the same as the present tense. In the formal form, there are differences. So for lei, it would be compri in airy verbs. So I would say signora compri, and then signori, if I'm addressing plural formal people, I would say comprino. So notice that I'm just adding an O to the end of the lei form. The same goes for the ere and ire verbs. It would be signora prenda, signori prendano, signore apra, signori aprano. Now, if I'm giving a negative command, for all the persons, it's going to be exactly the same as the affirmative except for tu. Tu negativo is going to be just the infinitive of the verb. So positive or affirmative command is going to be compra, but negative is going to be non comprare, prendi, non prendere, apri, non aprire. All the other persons are going to be the same in affirmative and negative. So it's going to be compriamo, non compriamo, comprate, non comprate, etc. So if we summarize all this, it actually looks quite simple. So we have airy verbs. In the informal form tu, the verbs are going to end in an a, and in the formal form lei, they're going to end in an I. Remember that if you're using the loro, then you're just going to add an O to the end of that I. For the ere and ire verbs, it's exactly the reverse. So the informal form is going to be in I, and the formal form is going to be in a. If you were to draw a simple little diagram, this is what it would look like. And this is what I used when I first started learning Italian to remind me of the imperative forms. I would just draw this. So on the first line, I have airy verbs in informal, formal, and on the bottom line I have ERE and IRE verbs, informal, formal. That's it. That's all you need to know. Just draw this little diagram and you'll know all the verb endings. Now, what do I do with pronouns? Pronouns, there are quite a few in Italian, and if you're not familiar with them, I invite you to check out my video on pronouns. What do I do with a pronoun? It's very simple. I slap it to the end of the verb. So if I want to say buy me something, that I will say comprami. Buy me it, even if I have two pronouns, I would say compramelo. Now, I'm not going to explain the pronouns here. Again, you can check out my video. But if I'm using more than one pronoun, there's a slight change that needs to happen in order to combine these together. But the rule is the same. Whether you're using one or more pronouns, you just attach them to the end of the verb. Notice the pronunciation. If I'm just saying compra, the emphasis is on o, compra. If I'm adding a pronoun, the emphasis will not change. It's still going to be comprami. So I'm just adding the pronouns, the emphasis does not change. Compramelo, compramela, compraglielo. The emphasis always stays the same. Remember that. Now in the formal imperative, I will not put the pronouns at the end of the verb. I will actually put them before the verb, and I will not write them as one word. So again, reminder, pronouns, video pronouns, this is a little bit complicated, but the basic rule is that in informal imperative, I'm attaching them to the end. In formal imperative, I'm just placing them in front of the verb. What happens to this case, this special case of a negative command in the to form? Here I have an infinitive. So what do I do with the pronouns? I attach it to the end of the infinitive. And so how do I do that? By just dropping the final E of the infinitive form, non comprar, and then I add the lo, non comprarlo. Whether I have one or two pronouns, it's going to be the same. Non comprarlo, non comprarmelo, non comprargliela, whatever the case may be. Are there irregular imperatives? You betcha. It's Italian. There is always irregular verbs. So these are the forms. Notice the dash at the beginning of the line. It means that there is no imperative for the io form because you could not give commands to yourself. And even if you did, you just use to give a command to yourself. The orange ones are the formal imperatives, so lei and loro forms, and the black ones are just informal imperatives, tu, noi, and voi. These are the most commonly used verbs. There are some others, of course. Now, what do I do with these irregular imperatives when I have pronouns? The rule is the same, but notice that something happens. When I have single syllable imperatives, which are those of the verbs andare, dare, fare, stare, such as va, da, sta, fa, when I attach a pronoun, the first consonant of that pronoun will double. So va-ci will give me vacci, and then va-te-ne will give me vattene. That's the verb andarsene. In case you're not familiar with that verb, just means get out of here, vattene. And that happens with all of the single syllable verbs. So the first consonant of the pronoun will double, except in one case. See if you can spot it. It's gli. When combined, it's glie. So that will not double. That G will not double. All the rest of them will double. So these are all the things that I can think of when talking about the imperative forms. I hope this was of some help. Until next time, ciao a tutti.